Okay, yeah. Good evening to everyone. My name is Dr. Alfred Tay. So last 3 weeks we started a series that focuses on the Ghanaian housing market. We've been trying to understand how it functions, and then also to look at regulation, prices, and of course to help people who want to acquire their new place, their new properties, and also for people who want to invest in the Ghanaian market. Yeah, last time we had quite good discussion, and it came to light that, of course, one of the interesting things that people want to know has to do with the land acquisition. And as we know, land acquisition and land issues in Ghana is quite common. You have the situation where people sell the same plot of land like 3 or 4 times, and then the preceding legal battles that come with it. And luckily, we have the new Land Acts, which has been formulated from Parliament, and is actually geared towards helping to solve some of these problems we have with land ownership in Ghana. And for today, we are going to focus on this new Land Act, and then to look at the highlights and what landowners and people who want to buy land, what they should take note of. And yeah, to help us with the discussion is we are lucky to have again Emmanuel Dusa, who will be helping us to understand the act that has been formulated from Parliament and how it should be understood. So, Edisa, you are welcome, and thank you for your time again.
Thank you very much, Doc.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
so much.
great, great, great. Okay, so I would like to start from last week where we left off, because in the course of the discussion, you mentioned that when it comes to land ownership, right, is
Yeah.
basically the person who has right to the land, who owns everything on it. So I mean, I'm quite interested in that. So supposing that I have a property on the land, right, for 5 years, and then later it turns out that the ownership of the land is in the name of somebody else. Do I completely lose what I have on the land to the owner of the land? How does it work? Can you explain much about this?
Okay. Okay. So thank you very much for having me this time too, and I'm sure a very good evening to our viewers wherever they are across the world. And just as you said, land ownership. The general principle, as you have just stated, is that
Hmm.
he who owns the land owns everything on it. But what is very common with law is that there are exceptions,
Hmm.
and always there are rules that give there. But general rule is that once the person is able to prove a better title in terms of the land ownership, anything on the land, under the land, upon the land, um, a reasonable distance from the land into the space. All those ones are for the person that is holding the title. And so, for a question that you asked, if you happen to have a building on a land for like 5 years, and then you realize that there's somebody who has come around with a better title to the land, yes,
Hmm.
you virtually will lose everything. But just to add to that is the fact that there are some exceptions, just as I've told you, that our constitution talks about the discovery of minerals in lands,
Hmm.
and that one is the preserve of government. So once you discover minerals on your land or upon your land, you are required to report that to government, and
Okay.
government takes ownership of that. So that is one of the limitations to the general rule of a better title to a land and then ownership. Another one will be the limitations rule. There's a limitations decree that states that if you act in a way for a minimum
Hmm.
of like 12 years, that you have acquiesced. When we say acquiesced, you have acted in a manner that has led another person to take a decision to act upon a land
Okay.
without you doing anything for a period of 12 years. then the limitations decree will bar you from taking any legal action against the person, because
Mhm.
the reasoning is that you have contributed to the person taking a decision to acting upon the land, and you might not. So the courts are very passive on that. At worst, or at best, what you can get is a settlement, and
Okay.
then the person will go. But for your instance, that the person just has built on the land for the 5 years, yeah, the person might lose it, because there are established cases that require people that whatever you are doing in terms of land acquisition,
Mhm.
there is a burden on the buyer to make sure that he has gotten something that has no encumbrance. So the burden is normally on the buyer to make sure that the land that you are buying has
Mhm.
no encumbrance. So that one has to be taken very seriously in terms of that. Yeah.
Okay. And with regards to the settlement, right? Is the settlement has to do with the fair value of the price of the land, or how is the settlement determined?
Yeah, settlement. Yeah, quite a very general question. It depends on the kinds of bargain, but normally it does not place a higher weight on the land, because already the odds are against the person, the plaintiff, that is
Okay.
bringing the action in, because you have acquiesced in a way, you have stand by, and then you have caused the person to act upon a land in a manner that he wouldn't have acted if you were proactive.
Okay.
So the courts do not show so much mercy towards the plaintiff, yes, but it tries to help you to recover to the extent, especially if the person is not contesting
Okay.
that, because there are instances the defendant will also put up a defense to show that yes, I bought it from this, I have already settled the money, because nobody goes about discovering land and just acting upon it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
so somebody might have misrepresented to the person might have paid monies to the other person, and then and that is
Yeah.
one good thing about the new Land Act that we'll be looking at. It has professed some very effective way of handling some of these things.
Okay. Okay. Now, before we come to the new Land Act itself, right? y- I think I read somewhere that actually you cannot really own the land, right? You can only vest interest in the land, or be an interest holder in the land, and
Exactly.
not an owner of the land. Can you explain this
Yeah.
concept of interest and ownership?
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, all what we know generally is that
Uh,
when we say somebody owns a land, yes, but within the law, what it means that a person has an express interest, a kind
okay.
of interest, and the interest can move from whatever height it is through to lease, through to license. There are licenses that people are giving. So, for instance, if you have a license to a land, it means that you just have a permission to act
Mhm.
on the land, and it
Okay.
doesn't transfer ownership to you. But if you are talking about lease, the lease will transfer ownership to you for a determinable period for a consideration.
Mhm.
So, for instance, yes, you've taken over the land, I am the owner. But once it's a lease interest, it's a freehold interest, what it means is that for the period that has been determined, you are going to act as the owner.
Mhm.
But when it comes to lesser titles or interests like easement and license, you don't assume the position of an owner. You just act upon the land within the remit of the permission that you have been given. So
Okay.
when we talk about the various interests, just as it is well known and established that the highest form of interest that you can have in land in Ghana is the allodia title. That is normally not vested in one person. If it's
Mhm.
vested in one person, it means that it's expressed to one person, like a chief on behalf of his people, like the
Okay.
Asantehene, like
Mhm.
the Garman chair, or something like that, or like a family head. So
Mhm.
normally, allodia title represents the collective or communal interest of a people in land.
Mhm.
So it is actually the highest form of title, because, yeah, just like it has been defined, there are about just about 3 or 4 ways that you acquire land, either through discoveries, either through conquest, either
Mhm.
through acquisition or gift, something like that. So these are things that happen, and we know that from the history, uh, tribes migrate from place, they fight battles.
Mm,
So when they get the land, the leader of the tribe will decide to share it among the tribes, the family heirs. So that is the original, the foundation, the historical foundation of land ownership. And that is
mm,
why we describe it as allodia, is the highest form of title that you can hold. So at that point, the person holds that title. Then we come to the other titles that are available to hold, and
mhm.
that one will rest mainly with individuals, maybe family members. Once the this thing is given to the family head, he now gives it to individuals within the family, and sometimes even alienate some of these lands to strangers. So those
Okay.
ones to come, and those are lesser titles. It can come in the form of a freehold, but normally you call it a usufruct interest
Mm,
that you express in a land. So that one is lower, and then it goes on and on like that. So these are the form of interest that can be held. And with our history, government also holds a chunk of the land,
okay. Yeah.
government lands around acquired for developmental purposes. So these are the form of interest that can be expressed in terms of land ownership in Ghana. Yeah.
What about institutions like, for example, like a church, right?
Yeah.
If they own the land, or
Yeah.
maybe, for example, a company, under
Yeah.
what interest does it fall?
Yeah, so that is what we were talking about, the natural being and then the legal being.
Mm-hmm.
So we believe that once a company is incorporated, it takes the identity of a being. It has a
Okay.
personality that can
Mm,
be sued and can also sue. So it assumes some form of personality that has the capability of owning something, and that is where you are asking. And this is quite something that has happened. So how do you determine? Because there are restrictions to ownership in our laws that talks about the fact that if you're Ghanaian, you could be
mhm.
owning a land to the extent of about 99 years. But if you're a foreigner, you have a restriction or a bar to about 50 years and
Okay.
below. That is, you can own the land. So there are settled cases in law that says that you define the identity of a legal person by its ownership.
Mhm.
So, for instance, if a company wants to own a land and we want to examine the basis of its ownership, whether it's a Ghanaian or a foreign company, we
Mhm.
look at the nationality of the majority of its ownership.
Mhm.
So if majority of the owners of the company are Ghanaians, the company automatically assumes a Ghanaian
A
nature.
Ghanaian.
But if
Okay.
they are foreigners, then it becomes a foreign company, and the restrictions will apply accordingly. So this is how it is. So corporate entities that becomes
Mhm.
legal personalities can go on and own lands, but the restrictions are the ones that I've just defined. They are defined by their ownership. So once the shareholders pretend a Ghanaian nature or present a Ghanaian identity, the company automatically becomes a Ghanaian. And then if it is not, then it takes the position of a foreign company and the restrictions will apply. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I think we went offline briefly. I was going to ask, what happens right after you hold the land for 50 years, or in case you are a Ghanaian for 100, sorry, for 99 years. What happened after that? Do you need, supposing that you pass it on to your children, right? Do they have to re-register it again, or how does it work?
Yeah. So that is what it means. You renew it, and that is what
Okay.
we've been defining to say that, in fact, it is a kind of tenancy that is
Mm-hmm.
given to you. You renew it. So there are a lot of stool lands that actually do not know what they are entitled to, because once it's even a stool land, in order to maintain some of these records, they are entitled to be paying some annual rent to
Okay.
the stools registry. And then that is what the new law has actually been trying to do. It has consolidated these kinds of land administration institutions
Mm-hmm.
into one, because the split was not bringing some harmonization in the whole thing. So if you continue to be on a stool land And then on an annual basis, you have a rent that you pay to them.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping records of your tenure on the land will be easy and the history will be there. What has happened over the years in our country is that the lands were sold to people. The people lost touch with the people. People lose history. They
Yeah.
lose records. So eventually, people assume that they have owned the land forever. And
Yeah.
just as you are saying, the person buys the land and decides to transfer ownership or another inherits ownership, and it is allowed because if the person is having a lease title to a land or interest, the person has every right to be able to transfer ownership or
To the
even to decide to give it out for inheritance. So some of these things, because of the difficulty in not documenting the transactions, it becomes difficult in trying to know the extent to which people have exhausted their lease and then the fact that they need to renew it. So it happens always in Accra, for instance, where you see families, the Ghana families trying to move on, especially the corporate entities that have changed hands so many times because there were smaller buildings, they built a giant building, ownership has changed, and all those things. But yes, the law is the law. Once there's a restriction to the number of years you can hold it, whoever is transferring it, and that is where it's very important that once you are buying something from somebody, a land, and it's not an allodial title, the allodial title is the communal title. So that
Okay.
one will always start from the scratch. But any other title that emanates from that will apply the constitutional restriction of a 99 years for a Ghanaian or a
Mm.
50 years maximum for a foreigner. So if I own a land as an individual and I'm selling it to you, you must inquire from me the extent to which I have used my lease.
Okay.
So if I have, yes, I have 99 years and then I have used up to 40 years, then in fact, the interest in the land I am selling to you is 50 years.
Okay. Hmm.
Yes, the interest I am selling in the land is 50 years
50
and not
years.
99 years. But you find a case where the person will go and do a different conveyancing document, put
Mhm.
99 years, and still sign it off to the person. And then in future, the original allodial owners will come and say
Mm.
that we don't know you.
Yeah.
You are not the person who we even sold the thing to. Time is due for you to renew your rent. Then you know that you've been shortchanged in the bargain because you were thinking of a land you own for 99 years maximum. But meanwhile, the rest of the years that were left were just a little bit lower than the
So
one.
that brings me to my next question. Does it mean that if at the end of the 99 or 50 years, right, depending on the nationality,
Yeah.
the land ownership is reverted back to the previous owner automatically? Is that the case?
No,
Or
what the
the
law
government?
requires, because we don't want an inconvenience, and that is what the farmland situation in Ghana has been cured with this new law. What
Mhm.
people were taking advantage was that because of the principle of landowners owning anything on it, you wait
Mhm.
for you to build a skyscraper on it, and then when the time is due, you tell you, I'm taking my land. You either pay this or I take any another thing on the land. You understand?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so people will try to do anything because at that time his negotiation powers are very up, and then you
Yeah.
can't do without. Sometimes you've invested so much in the land and all that, but the law will now give us a guideline to the review, the
Mm.
maintenance rates that has to be done for the person to renew it because it is assumed to automatically have to be renewed, kind of.
Uh,
Uh,
oh,
so it's just an issue of dialogue between the two, and
that too.
we'll
Okay.
see that briefly in the reforms that has been done so far.
Okay, so with the reforms, right? I saw that the document is around 300 pages, if I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah,
So yeah, I want. Can you give us just the highlights, right? What do you think are
yeah,
the important highlights of the new policy on the
yeah,
on
yeah.
land ownership?
The
Yeah.
new law, yeah, yeah. So it's law,
Mhm,
just as you said, Act 103
mhm,
6. Yeah, so that is the new law that we have around, and primarily, there's an objective for a law. The objective of this law is in two folds.
mhm,
First of all, it is supposed to help restructure interest in land in Ghana, make it more exact, and then take away the forms of overlapping interest that we were examining. And then the second one, the law seeks to provide a very harmonized land administration structure, both for the customary landholders and then that of the private landowners as well. So
Okay.
these are the two things, objectives of the new act, primarily to look at the interest in land and also to also govern or give a more responsive administration structure in terms of land in the
Okay.
country. So, just as you said, there are close to about 272 sections of the law, quite big, and then we'll be looking at just a few of it that are there. So, just as I told you, the one of the very immediate ones is the ownership, the
Okay.
reforms that have come with the ownership, and then the requirements that is just there. It has turned accountability of this. Remember, I explained to you that there's communal interest, that's the allodial title, vested in
Yeah.
chiefs, in Tindanes, in clan heirs, family heirs, and any authority in charge of the
Okay.
stool land, yeah, or skin land. Because when we go to the northern sector, it's skin. Then the clients and the family are also held in an accountable position. So we have a law in Ghana which we call the head of family accountability.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's holding them. It's now bringing that law and incorporating it into the new land law, where these people are seen to be in a fiduciary relationship to the people that they are holding it. So you don't act in any way that injures the interest that has been invested in you, be
Okay.
it a king or a family head. Because initially it was like a leader of the group. He decides what to do, but with the consent of the principal elders. But this time, you have been given a very contractual, very regularized structure that puts you in a fiduciary relationship to your subjects. So your subjects can hold you accountable. They can hold you in breach of some kind of fiduciary relationship or duty towards them. So that
Okay.
is what the law has done when it comes to the issue of the land reforms, especially
So
the
are
customary.
you saying that if I'm the head of the family, right, and I
Yes.
want to sell the land, I cannot do it on my own behalf, right? I need the secondment of other family members. Is that what you say?
Yes, that has been the law. That has been the law. But what they've added now is that you do not alienate, because the old law will just be looking at the fact that you have followed due process. But
Okay.
when you are put in fiduciary responsibility or duty, it shows that in whatever you are doing, it must be to the interest of the communal people.
Okay.
Such that if I'm able to convince, initially, if I'm able to convince two principal elders of the family to sign with me, then it means that we have validly alienated land. But
Okay.
if we do that in the interest of a self-seeking interest as the head of the family, because I want to acquire something at the detriment of the entire family, then the law can hold me in breach of a fiduciary responsibility.
So how do you prove that all um the interests of all the family members have been
Yes, the
served? How
interest
do you
of
prove?
all the family members. So there are blocks. So there are about three responsibilities of a family head. Family head is supposed to keep assets, records of the family assets. He's supposed to make sure that the alienation is done properly and that the subjects benefit from this thing. And then the duties are there. So those duties, and then the last but one is that you must be able to, and last but one that has been added by the new law is that you must act in the interest of your subjects.
Okay. So how do you prove that?
Yes, for instance, if I give land out, I'm in a mining community. I give land out as a chief, and then I've given it to Galamsey people, and then the stream of water that is lying in the community that is serving as a drinking water to my people, they contaminate it. And regardless, I go through with
Yeah.
an alienation of the land
Mhm.
at the dispense of my family, then I have breached a fiduciary duty.
Okay.
And that can invalidate the transaction I've done. Although I have satisfied the requirement of getting principal elders to consent to the sale of the land.
Okay.
You get it? So some of these things are to check the intent or the kind of responsibility that has been posed or the powers that has been reposed in these individuals on behalf of the community or the
Okay.
family as large. So that check too has been prominent in
But
the
in the case where for example, the harm is not that obvious, right? Like polluting the water bodies. But
yes,
yeah, maybe
yes,
the family member, the head of the family member, just get three elders, right, to agree,
yes,
and then for financial benefit, they just sell the land. Would you
yeah.
still consider that as in the interest of all the members?
No, no. Just as you are saying that
Hmm.
some of these things, the details are very important. The
Okay.
details might define whether there's a breach of a fiduciary duty or not.
Hmm.
These are just hypothetical questions. But
Okay.
the rule is that whatever you are doing, you are serving the interest of the people. So whatever that does not portend or represent the general good of your people
Hmm.
can lead to invalidating your transaction.
Okay.
So that is just the guide word that whatever we are doing, maybe there's a death, there's a family funeral that we conducted, there is a death, and then the family head decide to sell a portion of the land to in order to defray the debt. I mean, it's a well-known principle that funerals are meant for the family to conduct. So some of these things are there. But for instance, a family head decides to annihilate a land, and what does he use the resources for? He uses it to marry a third wife.
Okay.
Yes. So maybe yes, maybe he could argue that it is for procreation. He wants the family to increase in number. I mean, but you don't do it alone. Maybe you marry for all the men.
That-
So
that's a
that,
funny.
so I mean that is just
What about the okay? What about the ladies, right? And then you.
so
Anyway,
maybe they will have to bring their men for the family head
for-
to marry for them.
oh, okay.
And you know, in some tribes, like the accounts like this, when the woman gives birth, the child of the woman is for the family.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
for the man's family. So even if you are to go by an argument of procreating, then it is the women you must sponsor to go and give birth and bring to the family. So, and it
Yeah.
depends on the tribe anyway. So
Okay.
these are yes, or more specifically, that is one of them. The
Okay.
second one is that the instrumentation that we need for
Hmm.
alienating stool lands. Now, they are required to have what we call the Customary Land Secretariat, which will now have obligations to supervise all the transactions. So
Okay.
there is sometimes a difficulty. It's been there, but I'm sure now we are going to make sure that it is being followed because
Hmm.
not every family head has the what do I say, the expertise in trying to go through this. So
Okay.
the law has always told them to hold what we call the customary land secretariat. So it's like a secretariat that is, it has an administrator, it has a, yeah, somebody like that who takes
Hmm.
record of all the stool properties and how they have been alienated. The records are
Okay.
there. And just as you were intimating in the beginning, they are able to follow through and know the length of 10 years and those expiring, those that require renewal and everything. So
Hmm.
the law is mandating that, yes, in order to put all these things together, let us have a secretariat. And this is not
So is
to,
it the chief? Is it the chief that must have the secretariat, or is the government that
yeah, it
will be
depends on
supporting?
the one that has the alludia title. You
Okay.
know, in some places, yes. For instance, among the Gans, alludia title is normally not with the chief; it's with the family heads.
Okay.
Yes, yes, because it's just about some historical distance. So normally, land is held by families. So
Hmm.
ni ama family, ni that.
Hmm.
So yes, so we have Ghana land secretariats, two land secretariats. So all those ones are registered there because it is
For example, for the guns, right? They have one secretariat where all the family members need to lodge their, I mean, their land transactions on, right? Or can you
yes, they are
explain that
they
back?
are actually
Okay.
the secretariat ambit of it. So they keep the record. They supervise such transactions as well.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
So all the families, right, must log their land transactions in that secretariat.
Yes, not necessarily because the family you come under a stool, is that not it?
Yeah, that's
The
correct.
family is under a stool.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Remember, it is through the stool that you got the portions because
Mm-hmm.
definitely there was some leadership that distributed these things to that. So we are
Yeah.
saying that that same leadership should form a secretariat that manage this customary interest in land at
Okay.
that place. Yes. So it will not just be for Ni Ama Family Land Secretariat. No. It is
Mm-hmm.
just going to be for maybe Koklobite Land
Okay.
Secretariat, Stool Land
Yeah.
Secretariat,
Yeah.
maybe Amasaman
Secretariat.
Customary Land, Stool
Mm-hmm.
Land Secretariat, Jamestown, like that.
Like that.
So
Okay.
all the families with Jamestown, all the families in Kokrobite, all the families in Kasua or somewhere, they all will have a reference point. And that it is not only for the landowners, it is for buyers as well.
As
So
well.
that
Okay.
buyers can have a reference point where they can check. Because sometimes if you are buying a stool land, there are several stories that you hear in your mind. This one says he's the owner, his grandfather gave it to this. This one says that he is that, his mother gave it to that. So if you have a source that you go, so that is why we advise people that when you are dealing with a stool land, try and locate the stool secretariat
Okay.
because that is the appropriate place where you can be furnished with all the details that you
Mm.
know. There are some family heads that have been distilled. They have been distilled legally, but they still hold themselves as family head. If he
Uh,
has been distilled as family head, there's a new family head. When you go to the secretariat, you will know, and then
mm.
you deal with the appropriate persons. So that is one of the things too that I think is good.
Is,
And
mm.
then the administration and everything that is there is also consolidating the various land administration. So we'll be looking at where the records of the customary interest are being taken.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, it will have been taken at the land secretariat, and then we do registration of the instruments too there, and then we do the registration of the title and interest and then rights to the land. So these are some of the things that will now be done at that place and
Mm.
it will be fully supervised by the person and made legal. So that is what it has been done so far with respect to that. Now we go to what I call
And again, right?
okay,
The
sorry.
again with the administration,
Yeah.
again, these things decentralized in such a way that I mean, whichever region I am in, I can do this administrative stuff, or I always need to come to Accra. Well, how is
Okay,
that?
okay. Yeah, thank you. So already you have regional lands offices and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say was going to explain that because there is a digital version to this particular
Ah,
whole land reform
okay,
where I'm sure you can sit in any part of the country once it is fully implemented to even do conveyancing. You
mm,
don't need to even move to our office
okay,
because the law is trying to look at legal practitioners, lawyers. They will apply. You have to apply to the Lands Commission. They will assess you on a certain criteria and then know that you are qualified. And then they will accredit you. And
mm-hmm.
with that, you have a portal that you'll be able to do conveyancing electronically,
Mm-hmm.
digitally, without even moving to the office. So,
Mm,
for instance, I buy a land, I get a lawyer, he does the document, he scans them and then push them through the platform. So that is how, well, that is where we are getting to the
ah,
land administration and everything.
mm,
And it is going to be interesting because the law will continue to require people to do the right thing. And by saying so, they are required to make sure that they publish the number of registered lands that come before them. So transparency is also another thing that is going to play cardinal role because the law is
mhm,
requiring that after 10 years of each month. So this is going to be a monthly exercise. So
mhm.
after 10 days of each month, the land registrars are supposed to compile a list of registered interests and rights in the previous month and
Okay,
submit them to the director of land registration department or
mhm,
division. And then he is supposed to compile them And when he compiles them, within 14 days, he is supposed to make sure that whatever compilation he has done is published on the website of the Lands Commission. This
Wow.
is this is this is the icing for the
Hmm.
reforms that we have
Yeah.
been looking for, because
Also with the prices or only?
with the prices of the land. No,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
interest. So we are
Okay.
saying that land plot number that located
Okay.
at Somenya is for this particular person, has
Okay.
been registered in this particular name, and that this particular name. And this law is going to require whoever is in charge, the director in charge of the land registration, to make sure that he publishes that, and there are timelines. So this is just fantastic. This
Yeah.
person has 10 days after each month to compile the list. And once he gives you the list, you also have 14 days to make sure that it is published. And
Yeah.
very, very solid law,
Mm.
timelines, and then the specific action that ought to be taken. So
And
when we have
I think it's also going to be helpful for people who want to buy, right? Because that could be a starting
exactly,
point.
they can
Yeah.
cross check.
Yeah.
They can cross check easily. And you know this thing about search and everything, you go and search, and search results will tell you that it is in the name of this person. And then
Yeah.
overnight, somebody can also bring you another search report that is in another person's name. I mean, some of this history is going to cure it. And
Yeah.
we are going to have a streamline. And that is very, very important. I think so.
That's
The is
comforting.
yeah. The implementation is the issue now, and we hope that those
So
who are
what are the timelines with this particular implementation? When
yes,
should
I know there's supposed to be the creation of these institutions. You need the allies to make the law operational. The law themselves define the intent, but you know their institutional regulation. For
okay.
instance,
Mm.
the accreditation of legal practitioners to do conveyancing. It has to come with a guideline. It has to come with a legal instrument, legislative instrument, and all that.
Okay. Mm.
So practical. So all those things will go in. But I mean, such a process normally takes like 2 years when
Okay.
there's a new law for it to phase out, the proper institutions to be built in here and there, and then subsequently the law takes effect.
But
So
this particular act was passed in 2020, right? So we should be
yeah,
expecting it
so
this
we
year.
are inching towards there. So
Okay.
latest by 2022,
Hmm.
just like this year, we should be seeing some progress. But to be very honest, it has been very slow in terms of,
Okay.
except for the digitization part of it.
Hmm.
I know the other one will take time because that means that, yes, I mean, you need a very good profession, people that are trustworthy, like lawyers, and then a certain number of years in practice,
Okay.
possibly to show that the person is that and that and all that. And it will take time. It will take time, honestly.
Mm.
I'm sure the law will be phased in gradually, but it is exciting that the whole picture is good. The
Mm.
picture of the
Yeah.
new law is very, very good.
At
And
least the intention is
the
quite good,
intention
right?
is there.
Yeah.
I mean, fantastic. So that is it. The intention is quite clear, and then
Okay.
that will be it. Now, the last one I want to talk about, the last but one before the affirmative reform, is the fact that this particular new law is calling people to acknowledge the procedure of the Alternative Distribution Dispute Resolution Act, that is 2010. So, what this law is trying to tell us is that whenever there's a dispute in land, it is requiring parties to have used the tool of ADR before seeking for redress in the courts. And
Can
that
you come again? I didn't get it.
yes,
Use the
yes.
tool of
So
what?
ADR, what the law is requiring people to do is that when parties are in disagreement of ownership or interest in land, the law is requiring them to use ADR as the first medium for resolution.
Okay.
So no lengthy litigations in court, and you go, the land courts are filled and packed with people. There are land cases that have traveled for 20 years, even 50 years. It has preceded generations. Now, what we are saying is that this law is giving potential clients or parties to interest in land an opportunity to compulsorily sit down and see whether the matter can be resolved. Because
Okay.
some of the issues are just, they need some little bit of compromise from party A or
Mhm.
party B, and then the issue is resolved. So the law has acknowledged that. person should be able to use the ADR Act, that's the 2010 one, and
Okay.
then they should be able to try to resolve it as the first medium. That does not mean that somebody is going to bar you from going to court, but the court is going to require you to prove that you have exhausted that medium
That. Mm,
before seeking redress in formal court. And the
okay.
good thing about it is that such decisions emanating from such ADR processes are going to be binding on parties. They are
Okay.
going to be binding on parties. So although you are not in formal court, they are going to appoint arbitrators, normally people that have knowledge in land administration, if even if the person is not a lawyer, and then the person is going to sit in and try to get an amicable resolution to the matter before you proceed. And the last one I want to touch on is the affirmative part
Mm,
of the law that is requiring that, initially, if you're a woman and you want to register land in your name, you needed a seconder who is a male. Kind of funny something, but it supports our tradition, isn't it?
yeah.
Oba tutua a tribema them, literally meaning
Okay.
that if a lady buys a gun, it has to be hoisted or it has to be kept in a man's
Okay.
room.
Okay.
So ladies have restriction in terms of certain ownership.
That is the under the previous
Yes,
policy,
under the
right?
but this new law is going to give them a sigh of relief where they can go all out and then seek title or interest in
Mm-hmm.
land in their names without any male required secondment to their
Okay.
documentation. And that is it. I'm sure people even didn't notice it that there was a bar because it's just like somebody has to sign for the person and is signing. They didn't
Mm.
even know that it was a bar.
Oh,
But thankfully, and a lot of affirmative organizations like the of contribution to make sure that such a reform came in. So it's actually one of the very good things that has
good.
happened.
Yeah. Good
So
news
these
for
are
the
just the
women.
few, yeah, these are just the few things that come, and these things portend on the nature of the transactions that we can do as
Okay.
estate managers.
Mm-hmm.
That is the more important reason that we are looking at it. So, what does this imply for us as people that manage properties, as people
Mm-hmm.
that advise persons on land transaction and everything? It means that we have to take digitization very, very important, and
Okay.
we have to look at digitizing everything that we have. So, if you're a landowner now and you are looking at registering your land, you shouldn't be looking at an analog system where you have to use a tape measure, you use the GPS, you
Mm-hmm.
extract the coordinates, you have a digital site plan, and all those things. So that is the phase that we are going in,
So
the
yeah.
phase
Mm-hmm.
that you virtually will need those things to do.
Mm.
And when people do their site plans and they give them a copy on a CD or the CD copy, they throw it away and saying that it's not important. All those things, because for instance, if your lawyer is doing conveyancing for you, that is possibly the one that is going to insert in for the coordinates to be extracted to match
Yeah.
up with the kind of this thing. So those are the things that we should be looking at. We also must decide to be forming alliances with people that have technical know-how and then the legal know-how in terms
Okay.
of administration, because this is very, very instructive. It's not going to be like the any way go out again.
Yeah.
It's going to
Mm.
be very much about the law. So whoever you decide to choose as your estate consultant or agent in the transaction must be able to express knowledge in these
And all
areas
this. Yeah.
so that you don't find yourself wanting. And then we have already talked about it, the registration that is going on that we need to
Mm-hmm.
look at, alienation to strangers. And then we mentioned it about in our last discussion, the reforms in matrimonial properties, where now you are required to get a written consent. So if somebody comes to you and you know that these are matrimonial properties,
Yeah.
and matrimonial properties does not mean that they must bear the names of the two of them before you know it's matrimonial property. Any property that was acquired
Mm-hmm.
after the
The marriage.
substance of the marriage
Mm-hmm.
automatically becomes a matrimonial property. So if I did not own a land and I married and I now own a land, it becomes a subject of matrimonial property.
But is there? I'm not sure if that is. We could discuss that later. But I think sometimes there are exceptions, right, where you could have like
Yeah, Yes, there
Uh,
are exceptions where you have to actually prove that you actually acquired it with
mhm.
you alone in mind. But
Yeah.
the general assumption is that anything that a man or a woman acquires during the substance can be a subject of it.
Okay.
Yes, because we have moved, and our constitution is very clear to it that spouse must be given equal rights to
Mm,
assets matrimonial. So it takes some time, except there are documentations to the effect that
mm,
this one was acquired with the sole purpose of single ownership. In the absence of that, the assumption is that all properties are supposed to be held as
yeah.
such. So that is what we need to know. And so we need to invest a lot of time for buyers. You need to invest a lot of time in knowing that you are having an estate agent that has the
Oh,
expertise to help you with the background. Legal documentations are going to be required. And then the processes that are going to be done are high tech. So
okay.
doing wayside transactions will not be so helpful to you.
Hmm.
You need somebody that can give you a backstop end to all the things that you have done when it is called into question so that you don't find yourself wanted. So this is in brief the
The
general
highlight.
of
Okay.
the reforms. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure subsequent times, if we have the opportunity, we can deal with it in a more specific manner,
Yeah.
and we could be able to make headway with it. So
I think you touched briefly on the implications, right, for people who want to buy
yeah.
land in the light of this new policy. But I'm looking at also the landowners, right? I think they also have some responsibility in the light of this current reform. What would be the implications in your view?
Yes, the landowners, and that is
Mhm.
what we are saying that uh, a chunk of theirs has been taken off in the criminal aspect, where
Okay.
double sale has become criminalized, the engagement of landlords has also been criminalized, and all things. So most of the things is requiring you to do the right thing, and
Okay.
due diligence is the key. So in this modern day and age, it suffices nothing to ensure that you have contracted an estate agent like us to look over your shoulders for you. You don't meddle yourself in the transactions so that we actually know what we are doing, and then we are able to look into it so
Mhm.
that you don't conflict your interests and contradict yourself in the process of trying to sell the land. You come
Okay.
to us, we don't take anything from you. We What we do is that our remuneration is tied to your interest. So once the thing is sold, there's a percentage that you give to the company, and then
Okay.
we make sure that we oversee every process line through the line. If you bring your property to us, we do a self-assessment of it. We make sure the documentations are genuine. And
Mhm.
so before we put it on our portal, before we engage people, we know what we are talking about. And it saves you a lot of trouble. Some
Okay.
people are holding documents that they don't know their properties have been encroached upon. We rectify all these things for you. And that is one thing that people should be doing now. If you
Mhm.
have bought an old land, and sometimes it's for the benefit of people who are outside the shores of Ghana, you can call Elson. We can do a digital site plan. Make sure that the land you intended to
Mm.
register or have assumed to register is actually the land that you are talking about. Because
Okay.
the days of those analog site planning is over. And because people are doing digitization, there is a danger for somebody to plot your land into his and get it registered. And that is what is happening every day. Some portions of people's land are getting
Okay.
registered. So you want to sell it, and at a point you have to settle somebody
Mm.
because you don't actually have rights to the entirety of the land that is supposed to be yours. You might
Mm.
have built on the land, you might have fenced the land, but yet the portions of the land are in another person's interest. And
Mm.
all these things can be checked. So for the people outside, this is a new dawn for us. We can do that, and it doesn't cost much. If you call us, you can WhatsApp us, you can send us an email, we'll follow up. We give you the various charges that are there. We
Mm.
have a team of dedicated people. We just take the site plan and then we cross check your documents for you. And then
Okay.
it's validated. And then you update your records to the Lands Commission because everyone is required to go digital.
Mm.
So
Mm.
if you are a person who registered in the old, you are required to be doing some of these things to be able to save yourself the stress, because the digital registration
Mhm.
would overly take precedence over the analog that way, because
Mhm.
digital registration will come with precision. What you did, nobody else know. Precision is more with the digital side plans, and
Mhm.
you ought to do that. So we are calling on the many people outside. You can also be here, but you need the expertise. You call us, and then we'll be ready to serve you. And
Okay. Okay. Our time is is fast spent,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, maybe your last word, and then we can end today's session. I'm sure in the next session we'll have time to
to
go
do.
in, yeah,
Yeah,
go
so just
deeper.
as I'm repeating, we can't have, we've just discussed the general rules,
Yeah.
but to every rule, there are exceptions. The nitty gritties of your case will decide whether the law is in your favor or not, and everything. So, some of these things you need to come clean and very personal.
Yeah.
So, we are advising everybody contact us. Elsin, you can come to our Facebook page. You can reach us on our website, info@elsinsglobal.com. You can contact our hotline, which is readily available anytime. You buzz us, we are off time, you send us a message, and whenever we come around, we'll make sure we call you within
Uh-huh.
the shortest possible time, and then we'll respond to your needs. So we are here to serve you, and we make life better. We make home ownership easy and safer for you. We are here to
Okay.
serve you. So thank you very much to Doc for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure people will find it helpful, especially yeah, those who are living outside the country. As you said, sometimes you really are not there to be able to go through all the processes. But I'm sure if yeah, we have people like you can always help us. So I'm sure, yeah, people will find it interesting, and they will contact Elson for that. But
Thank you.
I want to say thank you so much for your time. Research and effort to put into this. And also for our viewers, we want to say a big thank you. And don't forget to follow us on our social media platform, Essence, Facebook, and then also on YouTube. You can also like our page and then also get maybe regular notification. So again, thank you very much and have a good evening. Yeah, bye bye.
Bye bye.